Good afternoon, Deputy Premier, Ministers Campbell and Minister Weeks, members of the media, and the people of Bermuda. Yesterday at Government House, I was proud to welcome two new ministers to the Cabinet, Minister of Tourism, Vance Campbell, and Minister of National Security, Michael Weeks. And today, Cabinet colleagues and I welcome them into our first meeting of the reconfigured Cabinet, which we have just completed, progressing our work on behalf of the people that we were elected to serve. I'm grateful to have the media present today as we introduce the new ministers to the press and allow them to answer any questions that members of the media may have on their new responsibilities. Ministers Campbell and Weeks have served their constituents, the government, and the people of Bermuda devotedly from the backbench, and will now bring that same devotion to their ministerial portfolios and to the Cabinet table. They, like myself and the rest of the Cabinet, are focused and committed on delivering the change that we promised to bring on behalf of the people of Bermuda who put their trust in the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party at the last election. The Cabinet cannot and will not be distracted by rumors, innuendo, or sensational headlines. Our time and energy has and will remain concentrated on bringing the people-centered economic recovery and social renewal that Bermuda and Bermudians need and deserve. Minister Campbell brings an abundance of private and public sector experience to his role as Minister of Tourism, in addition to a long record of public and community service. His experience and knowledge will be crucial as we rebuild our tourism industry with Bermudians at the center of all that we do. His immediate near-term goals will be to ensure that this year's tourism season is a success, while advancing changes to the Tourism Investment Act to bring new hotel investment to our shores. Minister Weeks brings strong grassroots community leadership and over 20 years of residential treatment services experience to his role as the Minister of National Security. As we tackle the increase of violence in our community, his leadership experience and the work that he has done throughout his career within our communities will be an asset to the government and the country. I'm grateful that he is able to serve in this ministry full-time, and I know that he will be focused on ensuring that we redouble our efforts on tackling the root causes of violence. In addition to Ministers Campbell and Minister Weeks joining the Cabinet, I would also like to announce the following changes to the alignment of ministries. The e-commerce portfolio will move from being under the remit of the Premier to the Minister of Economy and Labor. The Information and Digital Technologies portfolio and the department of the same name will be moved under the remit of the Premier to the Minister for the Cabinet Office. The liquor license portfolio will move from the Attorney General to the Minister of National Security. And finally, the Consumer Affairs portfolio will move from the Minister of Home Affairs to the Attorney General. I can also inform the country that the cost of the Cabinet, as it has been reconfigured, is less than the cost of the Cabinet at the beginning of this year, given that I will continue as Premier and Minister of Finance. As I close, I would again like to thank the former Minister of National Security, MP Renee Ming, for her dedicated service, and look forward to continuing to work with her as she moves to the backbench and remains the strong voice that she always has been for the people of St. George's. I welcome Ministers Campbell and Weeks and look forward to their contributions as we focus on economic recovery and growth, reduce the cost of living, getting people back to work, ensuring that our seniors' living dignity continue to tackle the root causes of crime, and that we work to ensure our young people have hope for a future in the island that they call home. I am confident that this Cabinet and this government will deliver for Bermuda, and myself and the new ministers look forward to your questions this afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Premier and ministers. Thanks for your time. I just wanted to backtrack to yesterday. It's normal protocol that we are invited to swear in Would you mind sharing the reason why only invited guests were permitted to attend?
The decision was made to preserve the dignity of the ceremony at Government House, that we would reserve that event for swearing in. And so that event is for families who are being sworn in at the event, and we did not want that to be overshadowed. So the ministers were there, certainly with their families, and we were to make ourselves available for a press conference. The swearing in was scheduled for 1 p.m. and we were supposed to have a press conference at 3:30 p.m. But it is very difficult to have a swearing in of ministers if ministers are not able to be there. Minister Campbell's flight was canceled on Sunday, and so he arrived back in the island at 2:30. Hence, the press conference was pushed back, and we are holding this today because we had a cabinet meeting scheduled. So that was the reason. That was the original plan. But travel nowadays sometimes gets in the way.
When you say preserve the dignity, what do you mean by that?
I think that the last time at Government House, I think we can all remember and reflect upon that. So we didn't want to have that take place at the Governor's house. This is my house, and we can have whatever takes place here today.
Thank you. People have approached us, and we understood that Minister Weeks, or perhaps both ministers, were only asked if they were willing to step into the portfolio just the day before the swearing in. Can you confirm whether that's true?
Absolutely, it's true. I met with all of my ministers. I met with all of my ministerial colleagues through last week. Last week, Tuesday, at the cabinet, I informed ministers that I'll be meeting with all ministers of the government over the next week to discuss changes and reconfigurations to the cabinet. I had those meetings on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And in all of those meetings, I told my ministers and MPs that I'll inform them of my decisions on Sunday. That's the way I typically like to do it. The fact is that everyone knows that in the government I run, I do not like leaks. And of course, when you do things and leave things for a long time, it can cause those things to happen. I didn't want to spoil the moment of the swearing in. So that is correct. We had the meetings that took place all the time. I had my deliberations with the Deputy Premier on Saturday evening, where we went through a number of various things. I spoke to the Cabinet Secretary on Sunday afternoon following church, where the sermon from my pastor was, "What is your agenda?" It was a lovely sermon. And then after my meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, I started contacting my parliamentary colleagues to inform them of my decision.
Can you confirm that around between 5 and 8 members declined to come step into the ministry?
It would be very difficult for me to say that. I can say that no one declined the offer to serve inside of the cabinet. That much I can say. I will not get into the circumstances of what may have happened between the time. I will state very plain and simply that someone had said, and following a discussion with their employer, they were unable to take the role, but no one declined the role.
Okay, thank you. You previously mentioned in an interview with Bermuda Broadcasting that the BTA essentially runs tourism in this country, and that the minister's responsibilities when it comes to the management of tourism are minimal. Was it your consideration perhaps to save an additional salary considering the state of our economic stance at the moment?
Well, the first thing, as I said in my remarks, is that the cost of the cabinet today is less than the cost of the cabinet at January 1st of this year. So that's the first thing, and I think that should be clear. The second thing of which I would state is that I think that it's important to note that tourism is a very vital part of our economy. And I believe that in having a minister that will focus on that, relieving that responsibility from myself, is something I think that is beneficial as I've taken on the finance portfolio. But in addition to that, and I think that it's important to note, that the role of ministers are to make sure that the policies of the government are executed. And I have no doubt that Minister Campbell will do that. And he might be able to speak to that.
Yes, I believe the role of the minister is to manage and ensure that the BTA in particular delivers on the government's plans for tourism, the National Tourism Plan. And so that is what I entail to do and ensure that we have the best chance of having a successful year in tourism and attract inward investment in our hotel product.
What's your next order of business?
My next order of business will be to meet with the BTA. As you can appreciate, I was just appointed yesterday. And so that's less than 24 hours ago. The intent is to meet with the BTA And from then, I will be more than willing to meet with you and talk to you about the content of that meeting and the outcome and the plan of, what we plan to do going forward.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Premier. I thought I was speaking to Premier.
It's the press conference is for ministers to answer questions. That's why they're here, but you can ask questions to me as well. But surely I would hope that people have questions for Minister Weeks and Minister Kent.
Of course. Sorry, Minister.
Is that for me?
What are the most specific things that you have to try and boost the tourism industry as it goes forward?
Could you repeat that?
What are the most important specific things that you have in mind to boost the tourism industry as we try to come out of this awful pandemic?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to increase the number of available beds, and then get people here to fill those beds. So again, I will have my meeting with the BTA, and we can then plot how we do that. We'll be in a better position to plot how we do that.
Do you plan to do anything differently to the previous tourism minister?
We will do what we have to do to get more beds in Bermuda and get more bodies walking around and spending money in Bermuda.
Specifically, what would that be then?
Again, we will be more than willing to meet with you after we have our first meeting with the PTA.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, for the Premier, please.
We have the Premier and the Minister of National Security as well. Jasmine, I hope you have some questions for the Minister of National Security.
Premier, what exactly do we have to reflect upon at the last swearing-in ceremony at Government House?
I prefer not to answer that question. We'll go forward.
There was a lot of criticism of you on social media after that. People were saying you didn't like taking tough questions and your exit was...
Let's put it this way. I don't have an issue facing questions from the media, but I also have respect for the dignity of the Government House, and I do not necessarily believe that Government House was the most appropriate place. So we're here today, so please feel free.
So you're saying that no MP who was approached formally or informally turned down a post in the cabinet?
What I can say is that, first of all, there is the question that came from Jasmine about 5 or 8 or all the rest. That is not the case. I spoke to persons yesterday, not yesterday, on Sunday. And as I can state that inside of those particular conversations and discussions, that there was not a answer of no. There were not multiple things, as your newspaper said. 3 people said no. There were only 3 people that were asked. 2 of them are standing here today. 1 person, upon speaking with their employer in further conversations, decided that it was not the right time for them, and that is okay, because ministerial service must be entered in fully. And I am appreciative of someone who will take into account those particular considerations to make sure that they believe that they can give their all for the country. Ministerial service is not easy. It takes significant time on family. It takes significant time on personal commitments and professional commitments. And so that is what happened. So the view, as was printed, as I expressed to your editor last night, it was completely false. There were only 3 people who were asked, and 2 of them are standing here.
Well, senior sources within the PLP told me different, but let's move
I will
on.
just ask you, Mr. Connolly, that you should probably check your sources and recognize and understand that people may say something, but if you want to have an actual answer, the only people who would be familiar with the conversation, decisions, and discussions which I had were the Deputy Premier and myself.
Well, it was a number of sources, but anyway, so it was correct then that an MP accepted a post in cabinet and then changed their mind?
I wouldn't go that far to say. I think I laid it out that there was, following a conversation with employers and discussions, it was decided that it was not the correct time. I'm not going to go further down that road. I've answered that question again, and so that's where I will leave it. My view is that I am appreciative of people in that case and instance who do not feel as if it is the correct and proper time for them given their personal circumstances. But again, your story was wholly and flatly incorrect because only 3 people were asked and 2 of them are standing behind me.
Well, I stand by my story, but anyway, the national security vacancy is there because of your extraordinary spat no, this is a question to you, sorry, I thought that was clear. Because of your extraordinary split with Ms. King, she said that she resigned. You said that you fired her. You alluded to the fact that she brought a resignation letter to your meeting. So why did you feel the need to publicly humiliate her in that way and not just let her resign like other people like Curtis Richardson?
So in the first case and instance, I would not say it is correct that I fired anyone, and I want to make sure that is clear. Firing speaks to something that was done wrongly, incorrect, or something else, and would go into.
Well, I mean, it was your decision.
Mr. Connolly, are you going to let me finish answering the question? Thank you. I would say that firing is not a word that I have used, and that implies that someone did something wrong, incorrect, or malicious. As I had stated inside of my statements, as I had stated that I informed all ministers last week Tuesday that I'll be meeting with ministerial colleagues. Minister Ming was traveling on the weekend on a well-deserved vacation. Therefore, her meeting was scheduled on Wednesday. There was a view from myself that the Ministry of National Security needed full-time attention. And so the decision around the reconfigurations of certain ministerial appointments were things that I had certainly considered for a while. And in that case and instance, it was decided that her appointment would be revoked. When there are cabinet shuffles and changes, there are revocations of appointments and new appointments. It is not something that is considered fire. That's what media likes to put. There are a team that is changed, and we go ahead and we adjust to the strengths and the abilities and talents that are available. Minister Ming gave great and excellent service to the ministry, and I look forward to her great and excellent service from the backbench.
There are now only 3 women in cabinet because of that. Do you think that's a good look?
What I would say is that we certainly want to have more women in politics, and we certainly want to have more women that serve inside of the cabinet. But the Progressive Labour Party has a long and strong history of women in leadership. It is important to note that not only the chair of our party, but the deputy chair of our party are also female. The treasurer, the secretary general are. We have our Senate team is all female. Major boards in this country, such as the Bermuda Land Development Corporation, the BLDC, the Asian Well Committee, are chaired by women of the Progressive Labour Party. And we will continue the work in the Progressive Labour Party to get more women inside of leadership positions, because I do believe that there should be more women in representation of politics.
Why are you keeping finance? Because you've got the 2 most demanding jobs in government, Premier and Finance Minister. Is that because you don't think any of your colleagues are capable of doing finance?
What I would say is that I served as Junior Minister of Finance from 2010 to 2012. I served as Shadow Minister of Finance from 2012 to 2017, and I served as Minister of Finance from 2017 to 2018. I did recruit the former Minister of Finance. He did come on board. He gave 3 years and 4 months of excellent service to this country. And I believe and judge, and I think that my cabinet ministers agree with me, that I am the best place to carry on that role and mission at the Ministry of Finance. And what I'm committed to doing at the Ministry of Finance is to carrying out the government's agenda that we laid out. That is to reduce taxes for workers in this country, to make sure that our tax system is more fair, to make sure that our banking system is more fair, that we do not have increasing fees and other things that are mounting upon our and to make sure that there are more monies in people's pockets. That is the mission that we are going to execute in the Ministry of Finance. It was laid out inside of our election manifesto, and I'm looking forward to continuing that work. Finance was my first love, Mr. Connolly. It was a joke that people around here would say, and I used to tell people that the job that I want is to be Minister of Finance. And there was a joke that went along with that you get to control the purse strings, but you don't have to put up with the stress of being Premier. Now I have them both. It's okay, I accept it, and I'm enjoying every minute of finance, and I'm ably assisted by a strong ministerial team and also a strong technical team in the Ministry of Finance.
So it's not because there's nobody else for the role.
Right now, Mr. Connolly, I have the Minister of National Security come and make a few remarks.
Thank you. I've been excited to be asked to be the Minister of National Security, and in so doing, I will talk to all the relevant stakeholders, sit down with them as soon as I can, and we'll come up with a plan as to how we're going to address the issues that are facing the country. I.e., for the most part, is gang violence, and we're going to really focus on gang violence reduction. So in the next couple of weeks, I will meet with all the stakeholders and we'll come up with a plan to address the situation.
Any questions for the minister?
Sorry about misunderstanding earlier. I could ask you, there was a horrible stabbing today again. You know, crime is as you mentioned last night, violence is a major issue on the island. You said communities need to see it as everybody's problem. That's exactly what the previous minister was saying, but nothing seemed to change. I know you don't control police policy, but you do control funding for the police, so you could bring up some kind of action plan or give extra money for this. Will you be doing that?
Well, I'll tell you, we don't control the police, but I will do my best to get them involved. But to address the crimes is definitely a community problem, and I know other people have said it, but I want to sit down with our community leaders, our churches, our community clubs, other community leaders, and see how we could come up with a plan which involves the police to come up with some solutions to deal with what we're going to deal with.
That sounds exactly what the previous minister was saying. Obviously, the situation is still very bad. So do you have no new initiatives at all?
Well, those new initiatives will come hopefully, but I've been in this position for less than 24 hours. And if you allow me to, I will meet with the relevant stakeholders and I will come back with a plan and some strategies.
Do you think the proposed legalization of crime, if it does go through, the proposed legalization of cannabis, if it does go through, do you think that will lessen crime on the island or increase it?
I don't think it lessen. I don't think it would affect crime in any major way. I don't want to speculate. Let me sit down with my technical people and we will discuss all that kind of stuff, and I'll come back and I will have some answers.
Jackson has questions for the minister.
Thanks, Minister Weeks, and congratulations on your return to cabinet.
Thank you.
I think it's very well known what the root issues are in Bermuda. We've had tons of studies on trauma in the community. Being a backbencher and kind of watching what's happening, what do you see is missing from the current narrative in how we can address gang violence?
I don't think anything is, at this point in time, I really want to talk to the relevant stakeholders, but from sitting in the backbench, those that came before me in national security were doing a yeoman's job. And it takes time to get the stakeholders together so we can address different things.
I spoke to Shadow Minister Dunkley this morning, and he's quite supportive of you. He says, you're in contact. Do you intend to collaborate with him and sort of, help each other?
Well, to save our children, to save our community, like I said in my remarks yesterday, I'm looking to talk with and sit with all stakeholders. Anyone that could help, anyone that has an idea, I am willing, and my door will be open to them.
Thank you, members of the media. That's our time today. That concludes our press briefing. I appreciate you all for attending. Thank you very much.
Yeah.